into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a three-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
All right, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Pod Damn America, the podcast you know and love. The gothic, whatever. Listen. My brain's a little frazzled right now. I'll explain to you why. So it's just me today. Anders is busy. We're gonna do some stuff later in the week. There's content coming up or whatever. But if you're wondering why the podcast is a little late, I know we stick to a schedule. We like to do a weekend episode and everything. If you're living under a rock, some shit popped off here in Los Angeles where I live, right? Whole weekend has gotten a little interesting, a little dicey, and I just got back from being on the streets for about 12 hours. I put in today. So I'm going to tell you about it because yeah, that's important, right? There are things that happened out there that a part of how we fight back here is just by letting people know, by putting the word out, to tell some stories that I think the media is going to tell a different way. So thank you for listening. Also, frankly, a little keyed up, man. Gets your adrenaline going. It's the middle of the night. I live in Los Angeles. It's the middle of the night for Anders. He's fucking asleep right now or something. So bear with me while I just tell a story. Goddamn Battle of Los Angeles popped off this weekend. And listen, I like to make an artistic podcast here. I would be playing the Rage Against the Machine soundtrack behind me to intro the show here if I didn't think, ironically, we live in a world where that would trigger a copyright infringement robot to prevent this from getting to your ears. So just imagine it. We're all listening to Rage Against the Machine in our minds together as we go into the story. I kind of felt like this was coming, honestly. If you've been listening to the show, there's a reason that I've been thinking about Mexico a lot and thinking about like the Battle of Algiers and Fanon and Algeria and decolonization and all of the dynamics that lay into something like that or play into something like that. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised this fucking happened at all. I'm a little surprised it didn't happen sooner, to be entirely honest with you. The United States, the empire here, has been it's been operating within these heightened fucking contradictions for quite some time. It's been scapegoating. It's been cracking down. I'm going to talk about Los Angeles today, but another thing that happened today, last couple days, this weekend, is the flotilla, like Greta Thunberg and the guy who played the fucking Onion Knight on Game of Thrones. That flotilla they're on looks like it's being captured by the IDF. All these things are related. I cannot stress this enough. We live in this age of like, oh, why the discourse, the narrative tactic they use to kind of dismantle what we're talking about and how we're resisting is like, why are you talking about this thing? It doesn't have anything to do with that thing. And important lesson for all of this is like, these things are connected, right? The environment, Gaza, what's happening here in the imperial core, in fucking the western half of the United States, the southwestern half of the part of the United States. It's all connected. It's important to understand how these things are connected. This is decolonization. There are massive lessons to be learned and to be gleaned from understanding Fanon and stuff like that. When you look at like what exactly is happening with the targeting of like Latinos and specifically Mexico and Mexicans, with regards to what's coming down the pike, what's happening with this country, because an important lens to put on this, in my opinion, is to understand that we've been living in a brief. Excuse me, I'm drinking a beer. I've just been out fighting in the streets for fucking 12 hours. Sorry to burp into the microphone, but like, there's 100, 150, wherever you want to put the line of demarcation. There's a certain amount of years where this part of the country has been America, and that amount of time is a period of historical amnesia because of the world that empire and colonizers have been able to build, not just in material reality, but also in your fucking mind. Look at a map of what the state of Mexico used to be. We can talk about the Spanish Empire before that. We can talk about indigenous people before that. These are all, made up fucking concepts. But what is happening right now here? It's the same as it is everywhere else, right? They are scapegoating the brown people that they colonized as a way to maintain empire. Fascism, as I often say, it is the iron ring that holds together the rotting barrel of capitalism. As capitalism decays and its contradictions heighten, we're seeing it in real time. It's a lot scarier this time. Trump administration is more organized than it was last time. This is really alarming. The National Guard was called in. Been walking around downtown LA all day underneath straight up federal like Black Hawk helicopters. I don't know where people are coming from when they come to something like this show. I have a guess. I think a lot of our listeners probably are already kind of well versed, but I want this show to be for everyone. And for that reason, I'm going to try my best to start in really broad sense here. Start at the beginning of the story. I've been explaining the history of Mexico for that reason. I've been learning it along with you, the audience, for that reason. I'm not going to start too deep in here. And part of the reason that I'm going to tell the story this way is because something that occurred to me, not just this round of anti-ICE protests, but the last few that have happened that didn't culminate in this dialectical fucking explosion. Something that's occurred to me with regards to the way that Mexicans and Mexican Americans and their allies and people in general that understand something is fucked up and something is going wrong and that ICE is a problem. Something about this is that when you go out in the streets, fantasize as you like, as much as you want, it's not the same situation as it is everywhere else. It's not the same situation it's been throughout history. There's something unique about what's happening in America, and part of that is, and result of it is, a lot of people in the streets, even though they have good intentions, a lot of them are liberals. This is not Algiers. It's not like a entirely subjugated people. We are people in the imperial core, and there are a lot of liberals and people who have been, by nature of being in the imperial core and being sort of quelled and placated by imperialism and by whiteness, even if you're not even technically white on some level, it's a massive force. people are coming out of a fog. They're coming out of an amnesia, and they're coming to the streets, and they're taking part in something. And I believe that the best way to get everyone on the same page and to activate these people and to make allies and comrades out of these people is through this exact struggle and through this process. There are people I think I saw on the streets in Los Angeles today who their lives and their views of the world probably were different before they left the house today and when they got home. The, I cannot stress this enough. So let me back up a little bit, right? If you're not in California, if you're not in Los Angeles, I don't know how much everyone knows about this. Honestly, I've been getting text messages and stuff from people around the country who just sort of heard about this today. It's one of those things. Decades happen, in a week. It keyed up really fast. I wasn't the first day it happened. I didn't even really catch on because I was fucking working person, right? And then I caught up yesterday, and then today I freaking prepared and I went out. But like, it. How do I explain this? So, as far as I can tell, part of what happened here is that there have been a number of like increasingly intense ICE raids, and I guess my working theory is that they specifically hit Los Angeles, I think on purpose, because they know that this is a city that will fight back. I mean, there have been ICE raids a lot of different places, and it hasn't reached as much coverage. So you know what? Maybe I got this wrong. Maybe it just happened to happen that they hit Los Angeles, and this is where things kind of became really increasingly globally political. It could be deliberate. It could be not. That's an internal question. But I kind of think if you look at the fact that they were so well prepared this week, kind of looks like they knew this was there's something political about this. This was a time and place to strike. They knew that they could skew the coverage a certain way. They knew that we would fucking show up in the streets and that they could craft a narrative from us simply resisting. And it happened, the inevitable sort of things fell into place. One of them was that they detained the president of the SCIU out here, the Service Industry Union. That happened a couple days ago. So that turned into a protest to get him out of custody. And the same day that they arrested him, the ICE pigs ran over someone who was protesting, who was forming some sort of barrier in front of them. And so the day after that, people showed up because there are these massive mutual aid networks in place. And there are a lot of systems still in place from the wildfires in January and also from the resistance to all of this during the George Floyd uprising in 2020. When you're in the streets, you can see hangovers, like people that learned things from being involved in stuff like that. So, within mere hours, all of these mutual aid networks and stuff like that lay dormant from previous actions came to life. People organized really quick. That's interesting how that happens. It leads to conspiracy theories, but it's fucking mutual aid. It's organizing, and people showed up. I knew enough from this to show up, and I've also been through this a few times. Been through this a number of times. But increasingly, it's gotten more intense. I mean, the first time I ever went to stuff like this was Occupy, I think. Ferguson, a few years after that. A few kind of, one-off things. The Wendy Davis protests, the filibuster in Texas. And then, there was sort of this culmination in 2020. And I guess what I'm getting at is that I've continued to learn things about how to do this and continued to become conscious of what these things are. And when I got a text message about this and I, got some information about it, I was able to act really quickly. And I'm thankful for that. But it was hard earned through learning about this stuff and becoming aware of the world that we're in. That's consciousness, right? So I showed up today. I knew what to do. I knew how it worked. I knew where things were popping off. I knew what you could do to help. Got a big pallet of water, brought it down, started handing out. The thing about this that's interesting is that, like I was saying, earlier, there's an organized march. There's an organized action that happened at City Hall at about 2:00 today. And when I got down there, I noticed that not everyone who's there is there because they're part of a political organization, or part of a leftist organization. There are all of these people who are vague, non-ideological people or liberals. And there's a really interesting moment here with regards to whether they can be activated or how this works, what your theory of, are you a collectivization person or whatever? Especially during the day when things get crazier later, which I'll get into, that it's pretty much people masked up and stuff like that, black hoodies on and stuff. But during the day, there were a lot of people who seemed to think that this is a march and simply a march. And we are not living in a world where that is going to do anything anymore. And it's kind of a fantasy for liberals to think, well, this is what Martin Luther King did. So, we're going to do that. It's going to fight these fascists off. And I don't think these people really understand this force we're fighting against to be fascism, really, by that logic, because you should be more alarmed. People were showing up with their dogs, with their babies, with their children, and the more I talk to people, I kept telling people if you've got a baby in your arms right now, you should get the fuck out of here. If you got a dog, you should get that dog out of here. I don't think you realize how serious this is going to get. Something really funny to me, honestly, that happened is I brought water. It's an easy thing you can do is just bring a bunch of pallets of water. I was handing out water bottles, and one of the biggest indicators of ideology at play, I think that's really funny to me, is that if a guy like me is handing out water bottles to people at something like this, during the day when everyone feels safe and stuff and it's still out there and they haven't gone, oh, it's a riot, I'm going home. There's a lot of liberals and there's a lot of old men who are liberals who don't really understand that they're just conservatives with, slightly different branding. And so I'd be handing out water bottles to people, and some of these old white guys would say, how much are they? And I'd go, no, it's free. This is mutual aid. And then they try to give me $1, the same way, if you quit smoking but you want a cigarette off somebody, you give them $1. And I didn't take the dollar, I just gave them the water. But what an interesting moment I was talking I was just thinking about this when I was talking to these men, going like, this is like, this is interesting. You're trapped in an ideology you don't even understand you can get out of. Like, me handing you a water bottle and going, I'm not, it's for you. Like, I just got this for you. It has to be like Burning Man or something for them. Like, they were like, huh? Like, I didn't understand. And that is telling to me, I think what it's telling is that they didn't understand the force that they were actually up against and fighting and what motivates it, right? I think to a liberal, this is just Trump. Trump is bad. Put it, get Biden back in there or whatever, Kamala. Um, not understanding the core of the force we're fighting against is capitalism, and it's the thing that sort of like indoctrinated you to think that like human beings cannot hand each other a bottle of water without it having to be commerce at the very least. Wow. But they were there. So, there was like a moment where I was able to be like, can I talk to you about why maybe this is like interesting? That can I blow your mind for a minute and give you a free water bottle? And then let's talk about what that means and what the news is going to tell you about mutual aid and anarchism and stuff like that. So I got to City Hall in downtown Los Angeles around 2 p.m., which is when this action was supposed to start, and gave out these water bottles to the old white guys and stuff, and uh brought my bike and everything, fully prepared to lose yet another bike to these motherfuckers. Whatever. It's always gonna happen. And some interesting things happened, right? So there were a number of speakers. There were some pretty good speeches. A lot of it was about solidarity. A lot of it was these things I'm saying about things being overlapping and intersectional. Um, it's very inspiring. A lot of local organizers leading the chants and things like that. Chants, keeping everyone involved, not getting bored, right? Feeling personally connected. A lot of things about why chanting is part of this really occurred to me during all this, and the just number of people there was so inspiring, and the number of people who are from the fucking community, from like the actual neighborhoods that are, and I don't know how else to fucking say this, but the number of just actual fucking like Latinos and Mexican people and stuff that are not just all Mexican. There's a lot of Mexican flags going, but there were also all these like other Central American flags flying around. There was this like solidarity of sorts. It's very inspiring in the face of this cynical point of view that, it's all white suburban people or whatever. Fucking white, leftists out there and shit. And good for them. Fucking, it was cool. But it felt like if you are lazy and you let yourself passively be informed by reactionary media, you would be your mind would be blown by understanding how smart, how educated, how conscious, and how historically informed fucking Mexican people are out here in Southern California. It does not match with what some fucking dickhead on right wing radio is going to tell you about us, about people. But there were some people who seemed to be appointed as leaders and organizers and all this, and it wasn't really apparent why this or that person was speaking from place of authority. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because basically, eventually, I had to start wondering who the feds were. I was walking once everyone was done speaking. the action became a march. So we marched from City Hall down to Alameda and Temple, something like that. A few blocks around the corner. And there was an old lady next to me, and someone with a megaphone started saying, "Hey, put on a mask. They're going to start shooting rubber bullets at us and spraying pepper spray." And she turned to me and she was like, "Are they just trying to scare us?" And I said to her, like, "No, that's real. And not only is it real, it's going to happen soon. Like, you can tell." She seemed to, at first a little taken aback, and then she sort of laughed. I said, "Hey, get behind me," whatever. Joke about it or whatever. But I could tell that she did not understand the reality of the situation. Was that this is not a protest, like a march that's like designated, like you're allowed to do this. We're directly confronting this thing, and eventually we got to this corner where the march stopped because there had been a little action a couple hours before us at a federal building, and basically everyone who was at that action got kettled. They got squeezed into this one city block and arrested really early in the day. It's like 2 p.m. And so what we did is we marched up to them and we formed the front against the line that the fucking riot cops were standing on. And here's what I'm getting at with these, like, quote unquote organizers is, I think we did what you're supposed to do. We stood, we fucking held the space, we yelled, we screamed, we made things apparent. And I mean, we were like standing right face to face with these fucking riot cops. They're over here. They've kettled other protesters. We're making a demand saying, "Let them fucking go. Shame on you. Shame on you." From the other side of the street, this car pulls up, and there's a lot of people here. So everyone has formed one big block, but it's full of these like people with like babies and dogs and stuff that don't really understand what's going on. And then from the other side, this unmarked car fucking floors it, like drove straight into us. And when it did that, the driver rolled down the window and it became apparent. People started screaming, "Get out the fucking, get out of the way, get out of the way." They're breaking the fucking crowd here. It was a cop car. And this LAPD police officer put his own window down, pulled a fucking rifle out of the window, and open fired. And these fucking things are loud. This guy did a drive-by. Like, there's no other way to fucking explain what this is. An LAPD officer performed a drive-by on citizens of Los Angeles. He was driving the car and firing rubber bullets wildly out his own fucking window at people. Hit a number of people point blank in the body. No one fucking died, By the grace of God, you could hit somebody in the fucking temple with that. It's over, right? You can hit somebody in the eye and they lose an eye. But he hit a number of people in the body. Drove straight at fucking me. I just happened to have my bike on the right side of my body to kind of get out of his way. He almost ran over a dog because there was a liberal there. There was like I'm calling this person a liberal. Like, I don't know what your deal is, but what I'm saying here is that I don't think this person, if they had their dog at this, was prepared for this to be what was happening. So these fucking cops floored it through a crowd of people, could have easily run over multiple people, which, by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, that's another thing that happened. I can't remember if I mentioned it or not, but the first day when they detained the president of the SEIU, they also ran someone over. That's why this escalated so hard. That's why it feels like George Floyd again, right? They're fucking running people over. So this cop fucking did a drive-by on us, point blank, just fired these like rifle at people, and then they ran through the crowd in order to go get to the other side of the fucking thing and detain, whoever the fuck they wanted to detain over there, and assist in kettling a bunch of heroic motherfuckers who I think probably got arrested at that part of the day. So then what happened, right? Some pretty typical tactics came into play. The cops formed this big line. We formed our line in front of them. We waited. They calculated, and every so often, every 15 to 20 minutes, they started open firing rubber bullets, throwing tear gas grenades at us and stuff. And they just pushed the line back. I spent a lot of the day just sitting there holding the fucking line. Doesn't matter. Eventually, they're going to fucking win. Maybe we'll sit there and we'll bark them down as they go home. Doesn't matter. None of this, like, you have to do this shit. You have to stand out there and make your fucking voice heard, because if everyone just goes home and they just dominate the streets, it's over. We live in fucking fascism. We live in tyranny, right? So I stood out there, and man, it was so inspiring. At this point, a lot of the like kind of like pomp and circumstance, like influencers, the novelty of it all started to wear off. At the beginning of this shit, there's like people walking around in stilts and stuff like that, and they're just like surrounded by cameras, and like it's like, this is like just for spectacle. Later on, though, after the cop drove through us and nearly killed a bunch of people, people started to thin out, and the people that were hanging around seemed to be more people wearing masks and hoodies and stuff. There were some seasoned organizers walking around explaining to these new people, if you're not prepared to get arrested right now, you should go to the back. The people that are masked up here are the ones that are prepared to get arrested. They're going to stand in the front. That's why they did this. But man, LA is so fucking cool. Mexican people are so fucking cool. Like, even in the middle of all this, people that you could tell done this before, seasoned veterans of this shit, were like forcing their way forward. And I mean, there was like a street dog vendor I watched just serve fucking hot dogs in front of this like line of riot police. There's a really great moment, when people just started dancing in front of these people and playing just Mexican music on a fucking speaker. I saw a Pachuco guy out there, which is like the guy dressed like a zoot suit, basically, which I'm sure I don't know if I've talked about this like a fucking 10 years ago or some shit on this podcast. How long have we been doing this? But like, it's a thing. The zoot suit riots, that's history. That was another instance of this all over again. There used to be these fucking cool Mexican dudes in Southern California, in LA, and South Central LA, who dressed like that, the zoot suit thing, and were scapegoated during World War II and accused of like fucking up the supply chain because of how much fabric it takes to wear a giant suit. Completely fucking insane, stupid thing. Resulted in one of these things that happens over and over and over again historically: a confrontation in the streets, completely scapegoating, completely fucking ignoring the central cause of all this, right? So I saw fucking cool suit guys, Pachuco guys. Fucking every once in a while, I look over, guy next to me is drinking a fucking Modelo, doing a whip it. Like, it's great. It's fucking inspiring. It's something I feel like people would have a tendency to police and go, "Oh, you're making us look bad," right? No, the the lumpen proletarian nature of the resistance here is profound and important. Not everyone who showed up to resist the police and ICE in Los Angeles today is a college educated, dyed in the wool, Marxist Leninist, PSL member, whatever the fuck, right? Some of most, by and large, most of us as Americans are not that educated. Some of us, it's because we are educated and we became fucking liberals because we got indoctrinated by this dumb system. I keep saying me, we, that's not me. Some of us, on the other hand, are not educated because we're fucking poor. We're the working class. We work all day. There's a lot of people out today who you just, if you just are down, if you just know what real life is like, if you're not one of these fucking grad school people, it's beautiful. The fucking level of solidarity that you see from people who aren't fucking theory nerds. They're not going to be able to quote Marx back at you all day. No. This is what we refer to as the lumpen proletariat. And this makes total sense that this is a fucking thing here in Los Angeles because this is the city that gave birth to that organically birthed street gangs, which are not a bad thing. They are street fraternities. They're organizations that, when you have been stripped of all other ways of establishing community, you get the Bloods and the Crips, right? You get the general just fucking concept of people who've been forced to live kind of as criminals. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a fucking good way. I think crime is cool. I think it's fucking absurd that we're, bullied into feeling shamed about telling people how we survive, like how we have to survive. So, in this fucking streets today, so many just fucking cool hood motherfuckers clearly already had these skills and tools already intact in their fucking tool belts, and they were easily adapted to showing up and fighting the fucking police, right? Tons of people threw fireworks strategically at these motherfuckers when they were trying to establish their line, and they were throwing flash grenades and fucking tear gas canisters at us. In The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, Fanon makes an argument that during during the framework of colonization, the lumpen proletariat plays a role that it did not play during original Marxist theory of where the contradictions lie and who's going to be the class that fully, fulfills the role of overthrowing our oppressor. If you're a traditional Orthodox Marxist, that's just the proletariat. But Fanon came along, sort of expanded on these ideas and said, yeah, that made sense in Europe, specifically what Marx is talking about. In colonized places like Algeria, where he came from, he talks about the lumpen proletariat a lot and explains that it's a different situation, and these people are in that situation. They're legion, where there's more of us, we're kind of more precarious. We fill the role that the regular proletariat would fill in in traditional Orthodox Marxism. 2025, California, US. It's a new situation. It's a new situation. It's not Marxist fucking analysis of Europe. It's not Algeria. Something new. So any argument is up for grabs here. But I really think if you read Fanon and you understand what he's saying about the lumpen proletariat, That's fucking it. That's everyone in the LA streets, right? And I don't mean it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing to be lumpen proletariat. We are increasingly all criminals, baby, right? We're all OnlyFans fucking sales and drug dealers. Like, there's no way to get by. There's no way to fucking survive in this world, especially in the most expensive places in the country. We're all criminals, and we have a fucking like a way of living, like a social intelligence that exists in some way in the legacy and tradition of fucking gangs of street life. Like, it's embedded into our culture at some point. There's a reason that we all love fucking like artists that come out of living like this, because they're, on some level, they're avatars for like being able to make it out of living like an actual human in this goddamn country. So after a while, these kids, they fought the police valiantly. We made them take all day to move their little fucking line one city block, basically. People stood, people fucking scared them, We used fireworks, destroy little property, not the same thing as violence, as we all know. By the way, I hate to like even get into this, but if you're like new listening to this, it has to be reiterated every time we talk about this. MLK said riot is the language of the unheard. The last time we talked about this in the show was 4 years ago. I'm fucking say it again because someone new could be listening. There's a tweet, that kind of sums this up pretty well, which is that you're gonna hear this rhetoric from someone that says like that does nothing for your cause, and that is from someone who does not care about your cause. Like, we're gonna be undermined narrative wise really, really hard. But we fought and we fought and we fought, and eventually there was this huge fire kind of behind the cops, and I couldn't tell what was happening. And this is probably like the funniest part of the day, in my opinion. So like someone eventually kind of passed word back. It's just that the smoke we were seeing from behind the police was a Waymo, one of the self-driving AI cars that you use for like rideshare, that's active at least in Los Angeles and no another of other cities. So we all kind of had a good laugh, oh, there's a Waymo on fire, right? And the police are having to protect it because police protect private property. That's their job. Big, loud fucking lesson here for anyone who's new listening is you've been told a lie that the police protect and serve you. They protect private property. They're the armed guards of capital, right? But there was this fucking Waymo on fire that they were all protecting. And then after a while, I came to realize there's like more smoke coming from behind them. And it turns out there was another Waymo that got added to this pile, and another one after that. And eventually I saw a fucking tweet from this like account that tells you shit about like the police scanner. And apparently the police scanner caught, or someone who's monitoring the police scanner caught the police asking the Waymo company to just shut down, just stop the app for the day, because the reason this happened is that so you call a Waymo on your phone, you can tell it where to come pick you up. It's a robot car. There's no person in it. So people were just calling them to that intersection and then lighting them on fire. And honestly, LA is a cool fucking city, right? How can you hate this city hearing something like that? But here's why I keep bringing up liberals and people that may not be like fully, hello Murray, people that may not be, I don't know, fully like adept and skeptical about what's going on here, is that God, 2020 was like 5 years ago at this point. It's crazy to think. Feels like it was yesterday. some of the same people that are organizing this stuff are people from 2020. And some of the speakers at the beginnings of what I'm talking about today were people who were around in 2020 and who are organizers, and people know them. But it is a certain fact, is reality, that someone within our side of things today is an undercover cop. Like, those exist. Why wouldn't they be there? Right? I don't know who they were. Every once in a while, you see a guy, just dressed a certain way. Sometimes it's easy to spot undercover cops. They're wearing like backwards baseball caps and stuff and cargo shorts. They're dressed by like what a cop thinks a regular person looks like. These organizers, I don't know. A little curious personally, because when we were all holding the line and essentially trying to free the people who were kettled from the police, a number of these sort of self-appointed leaders of this movement came around and convinced everyone to march back to City Hall, because City Hall had a permit, and we were being told that the block that we were on was declared an unlawful zone, and therefore we could be arrested for being on it, which is true. But I think we were under the threat of being arrested the entire time we were out on the streets. I don't know if I would say it with my full chest here, but I'm a little suspicious of why some people who sort of self-appointed themselves organizers of a frankly autonomous group of people convinced the crowd to split in half and to get away from who was protecting the kettled people. We went back to City Hall. I walked with a friend who was leaving, who had to go home. And that part of downtown LA got shut down. And I think they arrested the people that they were kettling. We don't know. We'll just never know, I guess, whether that was a strategic divide and conquer tactic on their part, or that person was unknowingly working on behalf of the police, or they genuinely thought it was a good idea and it either was or wasn't. I don't know, but something to keep vigilant about while you're out there. There was also, I cannot stress like the intensity of this, the gravity of it. There were multiple aircraft in the air hovering above us. Some of them were Black Hawk helicopters from the federal government. Clearly, there were National Guard set up. I watched some of the back and forth between various organizations online today. The mayor, Karen Bass, at one point vaguely alluded to somehow being on our side. Most of the discourse between politicians, local and federal, just seemed to be arguing about who should be firing tear gas at us. I think Karen Bass tried to make it some sort of like fucking, public relations win, that she said the LAPD are doing a good job, that they don't need the National Guard or whatever. LAPD are not doing a good job. They're one of the most oppressive forces on fucking planet Earth. They were they almost fucking ran me over. They're not doing a good job. But the feds had helicopters in play, and the LAPD also had them, which the LAPD has very sophisticated system of helicopter surveillance. It's outlined in City of Quartz by Mike Davis. Highly recommend reading that. And they have a thing now where the guy in the helicopter doing circles around us can basically project his voice, like to the extent that we can hear it. It's it's a big fucking speaker, and it projects to the ground. And this guy sucked so hard. He was, you know, for the most part saying stuff like disperse within 1 minute, because in 1 minute we'll attack you and arrest you. 1 minute later it wouldn't happen, but it was a tactic for pushing people out of the streets while we were trying to help our kettled comrades, right? He also just started doing jokes about like the Waymo and also about he told us to stick something up our fucking ass at some point. It was really hard to hear him because it still sounds like a McDonald's drive-through, and he's still doing like, you know, loops around a building or whatever the entire time he was talking. It fucking sucked so hard. It was really lame. It was part of the police state. I'm recording this in my apartment right now. I can hear a ghetto bird above me. It's still happening, but I think they kind of did away with the citizen thing that was going on earlier. So I stuck around as the sun went down, and some familiar things happened. We stared down the police. You know, people figured out where to move because there's a mutual aid network and a communications network in place. And eventually the police took back their little block in front of the police detention center, which a brave young person smashed some windows in. And from there, people dispersed to different places. This stuff has been happening all over the city. There's different sites. There's a lot of great stuff happening in different parts of Los Angeles. There's a great photo of a bunch of cops defending a giant donut shop. It's got a giant donut like sign that looks like from The Simpsons, or the lard lads holding it up. But in downtown LA, we eventually circled back to City Hall, and City Hall, people started a fucking fire in the street in front of. And I cannot stress this enough. The cars, the traffic that drove past us, by and large, was honking and waving huge Mexican flags out their windows. Every once in a while, there was someone, like one or two people, were just like some weird Fox News guys that would roll down their window and yell like, "You're like a guy called us the R word" or whatever, right? But by and large, the people on our side, I feel like it feels hacky and old hat at this point. I want to point it out anyway. City buses. Every single time a city bus drove past us, they honked because they're fucking workers. Those people are on the same side as us. So we made it back to City Hall, or I made it back to City Hall, and it's funny because all those influencers, those like Democratic Party influencer liberal types, were telling us, you got to get back to City Hall because we have a permit at City Hall. That permit wears off after a while. We went to City Hall. Someone decided to drag some stuff into the street, set it on fire. Nobody in traffic was really mad. It was cool. It was completely just encapsulating, summarizing spectacle to behold, because City Hall this entire time, especially at night, is lit up in rainbow colors because it's Pride Month. So City Hall, the very organism that is coordinating with these federal shock troops and police to gas the entire city, is lit up like a rainbow, right? I don't even know what else to say about this, right? It's like, if you don't get it, you don't get it, right? It's a very disingenuous weaponization of our own struggle back against us in slightly transmutated forms. It's very demeaning. It's very ironic. It gives you the feeling of living in a Verhoeven film. During this part of my day, probably the most alarming thing that I encountered happened, which is while we're staring down some of the police defending this thing, behind us, ICE itself actually showed up. A truck pulled over and kidnapped 2 people in front of me. It was behind us. I had to turn around and see what was happening. And they pulled 2 people inside of this truck. And the level of heroic shit that I saw these just fucking teenagers pull to try to pull this person out of this truck was like I feel ashamed that like I did not go as hard as these fucking kids. They pulled some real shit. And I don't want to fucking incriminate anyone. I have video of this. I don't want to fucking post it. It was like a war zone. I don't even know where they got some of this shit, but they threw a bunch of shit at this fucking truck and they scared the shit out of this fucking ICE agent driving this truck to the point that he got out of the truck and started pointing shit at them after basically getting like bombed by them. And he clearly called in backup because about 17 squad cars came flying down the fucking street a couple minutes after this started. Like clearly the guy had called, and then 10 minutes later he called his backup in. And I think we watched somebody get disappeared by ICE, but I watched like 7 fucking kids nearly take down this ICE agent while someone got fucking disappeared by them. And it was inspiring. They almost pulled it off. We can pull it off if we just have a few more people. It was around this time that a number of more riot cops showed up and sprayed tear gas in our faces, and I finally got hit with some less lethals. Got tear gas pretty hard. I made my way back home. I saw a couple other instances of riot police tear gassing people and stomping people, but it's it's the same story. God, on the overpass. I mean, the other part of the story is that something really cool that happens in LA, because the entire city's made up of fucking highways, is that people will take over one side of the highway. Marches happen on highways, but that became a point where they kettled people today, and it became a point where it was really highly coordinated against. I saw them on my way home. At this point, they had arrested almost everyone, and they were just throwing riot cops with like big plastic shields were just throwing tear gas canisters at like 4 people. It's completely absurd, completely over the top. I have 3 jobs, and I got tired and needed to go home and cracked a beer and started recording this podcast. So that's basically where things are at. But I can hear a fucking chopper outside my window. So this is still happening. It's going to continue happening. This all feels very 2020 to me, but probably with kind of a more sinister aftermath, because we don't really have an election to explain this away. The Trump administration is effective this time in ways that it wasn't. But I feel okay. Something that's fucked up about this is that I feel kind of practiced for this at this point. I'm glad to be able to put my body on the line. I am not afraid of rubber bullets. I've been hit with enough of them at this point. I don't care. And it feels good to be able to help. I think this is going to continue for a moment as it did in 2020. So please, if you don't live in Los Angeles, look into how this is happening. If this is going to start happening where you live, or if you can send people supplies here and stuff like that. I'm exhausted mentally and physically, and my computer screen just broke in half while I was recording this. So if you enjoy the show, if you want to help us at all, sign up for the fucking Patreon. Don't worry about individual mutual aid for this sort of thing. But I'm pleading with you to help us because I don't do this as a grift. I don't do this for my own self-interest. I do this because I truly believe that the narrative is a battle, that the ideological realm, the discourse, and the press is a battle. It's a battlefield. It's an arena. They're going to stitch this up in real time and try to convince people of all of the things they convince people of when this stuff happens, that it's outside agitators, that it's this or that people could not possibly believe the things that they're saying when they're out there. And I think the way to fight that is with words, with ideas. So, if this show went under, I'd get a job and go back to bartending. No big deal. I could make the money doing that. But I do this because I don't know why I just replayed the intro. I'm fucking exhausted. I'm pouring my heart out to you here. I believe that I 100% believe that the fight is ideological, not solely ideological, not solely material, but ideological is an indispensable part of it, and that's why we make good propaganda here. So I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm rambling. I just had to tell you guys about some shit I saw today because I don't know if fucking everyone's heard about this. I don't know if people even know what's happening in LA. This is huge. This is like history is happening. Thank you for listening. I'm Jake. Whatever. Come to my dumb show. Yada yada yada. All right. Good night.